Welcome to a Chat with Heart podcast. I'm your host, Christina Martin. I'm here to help guide heartfelt conversations with new and old friends I've met from just being alive or touring my music around North America and other parts of the world. I chat with people I feel a kinship with and that I genuinely believe we can learn from. Our personal stories have great power to heal, influence, and inspire. All we have to do is show up for the conversation. If we just talk about it, we could shine a light, we could break a dark day. If we just talk about it, we can cut away, we can make a brighter day. Hey everyone. So, fun fact about me, I love working. I don't really love sitting around unless it's like with a good friend having like a conversation or hanging out with Dale watching a show. I will do that. For the most part, I like to keep busy. I feel excited about making plans and getting to follow through with those plans. I love organizing things. I could, on a day off, like if I get to organize a closet or something, I'm in hog heaven. But I also recognize how my life is so incredibly enriched when I spend time with the people I love, my friends. And I had a great weekend. Dale and I spent some time with our friends, Annalisa and Matt, in the big city, which is, our big city is Halifax, Nova Scotia. And it was just like the perfect weekend. We went and we had a sleepover, and Annalisa made an incredible, wonderful meal. And then Dale and I had a little date night. We went to hear Hayden perform in concert at St. Matthew's Church, and hadn't done that in a long time. And then the next morning we woke up and we went for a walk with Annalisa and the dogs, and we got to catch up with them, and it didn't end there. And then we went for another walk with our family, with Brian and Alex and their dog Willie. Had some coffees, and it was just really awesome and like chill, and I got me out of my work mode, and then I was even more excited to get back to my projects and work on the podcast with Dale and then start my work week. So I guess I'm just saying all this for any of you workaholics out there, that because I actually do sometimes get a buildup and stress and stuff, and I realize it's hard to break that pattern, and the best way to do it for anyone who's in that right now is just give yourself a break. Like, just take a break, call a friend, take a night off, be with yourself, do binge watch a show, even if you're ashamed of the show you're watching, Emily in Paris. A break will help you return to your work refreshed. So there. Okay, it's time that I get to interview a guest who has historically only interviewed me. I never get to know him that much because he's always asking me questions about my music. And my guest today is Jeff Sammut. He has become a really good friend of mine. I think I can say that. I'm saying it. And Jeff is a 27-year radio veteran. He's also an onstage performer and comedy writer. I met him as a host of SiriusXM Canada Now with Jeff Sammut. And he's so generously had me one time co-host an episode of his show in Toronto that was focused on mental illness. That was such a privilege for me to be involved in that with him. What a guy. He's one of the kindest souls that I know, and this chat was really great. We talk about his time studying at Second City, our appreciation for Dale Murray. We talk about failing. I've been thinking a lot about failing lately, so this chat is timely. And Jeff so openly shares about his experience as a caregiver when his dad was living with dementia. And Jeff also provides great tips on how to get ready for being fired. You don't want to miss that. So I hope you enjoy my chat with my friend Jeff Sammut. Do you remember our date at the Toronto's first post office? I got to meet Rebecca.
Yeah. I wish you two knew each other more. Like, I wish, like, you and Dale are like a couple of people that I'm like, I wish we lived in the same city, because I'd be like monthly, like, what are you guys doing? If you hung out with us, well, maybe it's a good thing, because if you hung out with us, you'd like her more than me. So
maybe
I'm fine hanging with Dale, because I feel like I haven't gotten to talk to him enough. That's the one time at the post office thingy that I got to talk to him a lot. And I turned to Rebecca and I go, God, he's so funny. He's such a funny guy.
He actually really is. And, you know, like when we're doing our shows, I mean, it's the Christina Martin show, my songs, blah, blah, blah. And he doesn't like to step up and say much. And I have seen him perform, you know, his own shows where he has totally, like, he runs the show and it's great. And he's so funny. Making him laugh or hearing him laugh, like, I like watching shows. I may not laugh, but I love just sitting around, like, waiting for him to laugh. And also, you know what? This is all about, never mind about Jeff Sammut. This is all about Dale. Yeah. You know what I love is when he makes fun of people, which is so rare. But when he makes fun of people, it's the funniest fucking thing.
Really?
And I'm like, do me, like, be mean to me. Because it's so not his nature. And then he's really good at it when he does get angry and starts just letting it out. Right? He only does it around me, I think. But okay, so when you move to Nova Scotia with Rebecca and the kids, or we move to Toronto, or we'll do a monthly game night or whatever. Okay.
Yeah, we gotta figure that out, man.
Okay, so we're gonna get to a lot of things today, but I had no idea that you studied at the Second City, and I did not know about your comedy background, and that kind of training has had to just made you a better host, interviewer, on-air person. So I just am so curious. Can you please dig into what that experience was like for you?
That could be the entire podcast, to be honest with you. It was life-changing. It was life-changing. Actually, it was life-changing for a couple of reasons. That's where I met my wife.
She was studying too, or does she work there?
We were studying together in the same class. We became friends. And then eventually it was like, I can't just be friends with her anymore. I got to a point where I was like, I need to spend all my time with you. Like, whatever time we do spend together, it's just not enough.
I love that. I didn't know that.
But so it was life-changing in that regard. But that aside, let me tell you where I was in my professional life at that time.
Please do.
So I was in radio. Oh God, I don't know. Let's say 15 years, ballpark, 15 years at that point. And I'd been a producer and a technical director up until that point the entire time, hadn't been a host. And that was something that I'd always wanted to do, but I got into producing and stuff, and I think I was pretty good at it. And, it stuck, and that's what I was doing, right? And then I was producing a morning show, and I had I liked, I like theater of the mind and comedy and all that stuff. And I started to do these like sketches, skits, whatever, little 30-second, minute-long things. So I started to do it, and I was like, I'm going to throw one on the air during the morning show I'm producing. And luckily, the host was into this stuff too. Don Landry, great guy. He, my boss came in one morning. He goes, what was that thing you played at, 8 o'clock, whatever it was? I said, oh, it's this thing I kind of threw together. I thought it was funny, and I just thought I'd air it. I hope that's okay. He goes, no, that was good. Whenever you think of one, put it on the air. Like, wow, okay. So then he heard it again, and he came in and goes, I think we need at least one a week. Can you do one a week? Like, yeah. And then he's like, we need one every day. And then it was, we need one every hour. I'm like, oh my God. So it became my job.
Like they're seeing ratings go up because of this. Like, how did he?
They liked it. It was fun. We were getting a lot of responses for it. Then I started coming up with characters. And at one point, it became such a machine. It was my full-time job. I wasn't producing or technically directing. I was just the comedy guy in the morning. I wasn't the host. I was just, my job was to write these bits and put them together, produce them, voice them. And I didn't voice all of them. I voiced maybe almost half. And then my host did a lot of voices. And it got to a point where I was writing for 60 characters on the show.
Holy
so
shit.
If I had an idea for this character, I would do a bit with that character, throw that character in, whatever I had an idea for. So then it got to a point, and it was good. It was like I was performing in my own way on the air, but through characters. And then I felt like my writing was getting stale because I was doing that for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And then I don't remember how I thought of it, but I was like, oh, I'm going to try Second City. They have classes. And so I got my boss to get the company to pay for it. And he did. He was like, yeah, this is an investment in you. We're going to do it.
Smart.
And so they paid for all the classes. And, they were like $250 a pop at the time, right? For like these 8-week courses. And they paid for like 6 of them. So by the time I got to the end of it, then I had to audition to get into the conservatory program. And I got in right away. And that changed me where I was like, I am a performer now. And that's what I'm going to do. And it translated to on air. And that's how I started hosting. And because I went up on stage and I failed.
Yeah?
Yes, it was the failure. I'm sure you could attest to
love
that.
failing. I'm
You don't
great
think
at
so
it.
much. Surely there's going to be some moments where you fail, right?
Absolutely. Actually, well, for me, it was grade 3 lip syncing contest, but that's another story.
You started early.
I started very early and it crippled me for years.
No, it did, really?
Oh yeah. Well, I didn't start performing. I'd say between grade 3 and 20 years old. But
did you have an anxiety about getting up on stage in front of people?
I did. I did it a couple times. I did it in different avenues, like spelling bee. I ran for president, student council, and had to do speeches and I did the national anthems at hockey games in university. So like bit by bit, but it was always terrifying. And I always feared, because as a child I over prepared and rehearsed, but there's nothing like, and you could attest to this, like there's nothing like, you could practice all you want, but to get the real experience in front of an audience, that's a different thing. Yes. And I wasn't never prepared for that as a kid. I really struggled with it.
We focus on failure more, right? Especially when you're younger, and then you start to get older. And especially now, I think at our ages, like if something doesn't go right, you go, oh, whatever.
Well, now, you stop. As soon as you start seeing people dying, which we'll talk about later, you're also like, what the fuck? I'm going to die, so who cares? Like, I'm just going to embarrass myself. So what would have been like a failure at that time for you? What would that have looked like?
Like at the time I was at Second City? And
Yeah.
Yeah, failure, like you're doing an improv and it's just not going well, but you commit to the character, you commit to the scene until the lights go out. And, you walk away going, oh, that didn't go well. I didn't get one laugh. Nobody got it, and sometimes you go, okay, was it me? Was it the audience? Sometimes it's the audience. You're up on a Monday night. No one's laughing on a Monday night. You gotta really win them over. You do the same thing that you did on a Monday night on a Friday night. On a Friday night, it's going to go better. The crowd's better. They're more into it. They're happy. They're out. The weekend's coming. They're drinking more. So there's a lot of variables, right? Most of the time it's like, if they're not laughing, it's you. But so it changed me where I was like, the worst could happen. So then I would go on the air and I did overnight shows. I'd be on for 6.5 hours from 11 p.m. to 5:30 in the morning. And I did, my boss told me, he says, try stuff. Maybe wait till 3 a.m, but try stuff. So I kept trying things. And if it didn't work, I go, who heard it, right? A trucker, big deal. So no offense to truckers, but it's like one trucker heard that. I used to have an overnight on my overnight show. I used to have a trucker call in, and I would always get him to pull the thing. I go,
Yes.
Oh, it was my favorite. I waited for him to call, and he'd call like once a week. It was great. Anyway, so Second City was it was a game changer for me. It gave me a confidence, and it all but erased my fear of failure. And now that I'm older and I feel like I own my space, I could care less what people think now.
Yeah.
It's just a great place to be where, I want things to be good, but if someone didn't like something or whatever, I go, well, whatever, you didn't like it. So what? As long as the key works when I get home and I get in and I can see my wife and kids, then it can't be that bad. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, here's an idea. What if it was mandatory class for all middle school kids? Because middle school's around the time when kids can be mean at any age, but I think that's when things can get really gruesome.
Yeah.
Where like all the kids have to mandatory improv classes so that they can, with each other, learn how to be foolish, make mistakes, and that it's a mandatory that they are non-judgmental with each other, and get that out before you go into the real world.
Yeah.
Like have some practice in front of your peers. It can be the scariest thing in the world.
I like that idea of laughing together.
Yeah.
And the people that we fear, whether we revere them or fear them when we're young, we've built them up into something they're really not. It's just in our heads. It's just in our imagination. So if we tear that down, and it's like the audience, like your perspective, I'm sure you feel the same way, where it's just like a job interview. When someone's interviewing for a job or they're coming to see you, they want you to succeed. If it's the job interview, they want you to be that person. They're looking for somebody. They want you to be that person. So they're there with you. The audience wants it to be a good show. They're there with you. So you got to understand that. Like at Second City, people came to laugh. They want to laugh. They're not judging you going, what are you doing up there? You don't belong up there. They're not doing that. They're waiting for you to make them laugh. So if I'm on the radio and people are tuning into my show, if it's by accident or not, if they're tuning into my show, they want to be entertained. They're waiting for me, right? So I don't feel like I'm unwelcome. Because that's the thing, right? At first you're like, what am I doing here? Who am I to be here?
The imposter syndrome, yeah.
You gotta
get over yourself, as my mother-in-law would say. Put on your big girl panties and just fucking do it. Throw yourself into the fire. So you're very good at making people feel comfortable. Yeah, I was curious if that was just something you came naturally for you.
Well, I appreciate you feel that way. But no, it's not something I always had. I think I'm a kind, nice person. I think I always have been. But I think when I was younger, I had social anxiety, and I was always just worried about how I came across. And now with that confidence, I want to make others feel okay. And especially when I'm doing a show, it's important to me that a guest feels welcome and feels heard, and it's their time. It doesn't matter who they are. They could be the biggest celebrity in the world or not. Everybody has a story to tell, and I appreciate they're taking the time for me. They're coming on with me to talk to me, and I appreciate that. So I do make an extra effort to make sure that they feel welcome. And I don't want to waste anybody's time. There are people that are taking time out of their day to talk to me. So I'm going to make sure that I'm going to lead them in the right direction, that they're going to sound as good as possible, and that I'm going to know what they do and where they've been, so I could lead them the right way. Because my whole idea for the show is I don't feel that people are coming to the show to listen to me. I think once they've heard the show, they might go, I kind of like him. He's an all right guy.
I really like him. Yeah.
Thanks. But it's about the guests. It's about them. I mean, just from a selfish radio perspective, the better they sound, the better I sound. The better the show is, the more people are going to like the show. So it's all about the guests. It's not about me.
What do you think makes a great host?
Well, you got to steer the ship. You got to tell listeners, hey, this is where we're going, and you want them to be as excited as you are for all the people you're going to talk to. So I think you got to sell them on that so that they stick around and enjoy themselves. But in terms of the guests, yeah, I think that's huge. And I don't have an ego. And there's going to be some people that have egos, and some of those people that have egos are going to host radio shows. And the show's going to be about them. It's going to be about how they come across, and they want listeners to realize how much they know. I don't know much about anything. What little I do know, I'm going to share, but
That's not true. You do know
the
things.
guests know. The guests know things. When we started this show on Sirius XM, they one person said in the room, they said, and don't worry, like, we're going to get, we want you to have guests on that are going to talk about things that you know. And I said, no. I want, it's better to have people. I mean, you're going to have a bit of that, but I want to have people on to talk about things I don't know.
Yeah.
Because you get the best questions. I don't know anything, and I don't need to know anything. Listeners don't know. They don't know what you do, Christina. They're not as gifted as you are musically. They can't write songs like you do. So neither can I. So I'm going to ask you questions about that. And they're going to go, yeah, good question. I don't know anything about that. So I don't need to know. I never need to be the smartest person in the room. I never have been. I never will be. So I don't need to be when I'm doing my show.
Well, speaking of things that I know very little about and that I think you are an expert at, but I don't know anything about, and I don't know the level of your expertise.
All right.
3 things.
Yeah. 3 things. Oh, my God.
3 things.
I would argue 1, but okay.
Baseball, hockey, Frank Sinatra. Are these your 3 favorite things? What do they have in common, if anything?
Well, baseball, because I love baseball. I just, it's like, if baseball were a human, I would have married it a long time ago. I love baseball, always have. Hockey, I grew up with it. We're Canadian, right? I mean,
I did too.
Gotta be some part of you that loves hockey. So that kind of takes me back to when I was a kid. And Frank Sinatra, it's because of my dad. My dad loved Frank Sinatra. I was just watching, I think it was Pal Joey. I was watching a Frank Sinatra film a couple of days ago, at least a portion of it, before my kids interrupted and they wanted to watch one of their dumb shows.
What are your kids' names?
I love them. Luke and Jake. But
Luke and Jake, we love you.
So Frank Sinatra puts me in a place where I get to be with my dad, which I don't get to be with my dad anymore. So he passed away in May 2021. So whenever you're listening to this, that's when he passed away. So Frank Sinatra kind of connects me with my dad, right? So that's why I like Frank Sinatra. So they're not connected.
There's nothing, but these are 3 things you're passionate about. And, I don't even know how to talk about sports or Frank Sinatra, but it's good to have a passion. Although that's not true. I did grow up in a hockey family and got dragged to the games, and my father would rent the arena for us to go skate as a family.
Really?
And, my brothers were goalies, and my brother Alex still plays regularly. And we used to go to some NHL games, and my dad would take us to baseball games now and then, and that stuff was exciting, but I could never watch it on TV. I could never watch sports on TV. It was always like, I want to be doing that thing. I don't want to sit and watch it,
I get that. Yeah, I get that.
So
I'm to a point now where, like I live my sporting life through coaching my kids' teams and playing with them.
What?
But when not doing that, then I'm watching it.
How do you find time to coach?
Oh, I coached both their baseball teams this past summer. Both of them. I was assistant coach. I wasn't like the head coach for both. I didn't run everything. I just showed up to all the practices and all the games and, did my thing then. I wasn't like spending all my time outside of the park coming up with lineups and coordinating things and talking to parents. I didn't do any of that. I don't want to sign up for that.
Okay,
but
good.
Actual going to practices and teaching them how to throw and catch and do all that stuff. Oh, I loved it. I love it. I want to do it. I'm going to do it again next year for sure.
Did your dad did he take you to games when you were a kid?
No, my older brother did. My dad didn't really care for sports. He played soccer in Malta, where he was from, and he was really good at it. But once he came to Canada, he had given all that up, and he'd watch soccer from time to time, but he wasn't really into sports anymore. So no, my older brother would take me to games, and when I got old enough, I would go to games on my own. But
wow,
my dad didn't. I don't have any sports connection with my dad. My dad was just kind of like, with me, he would be like, "Oh, there's that thing you like," and that would be it. Like he didn't really invest in it.
It's like I lost a parent when I was younger, like 19, and I think no matter how old you are and no matter what your relationship is like with a parent, it just really changes you. Like it's not the same as losing a grandparent that maybe was, in their 70s, 80s, or
Yeah.
90s, where you were kind of expecting, like, you always grow up with grandma and gramps aren't going to be around for much longer. So you're kind of like preparing for it, even though it's still
Yes.
sad. Losing
Right.
your dad, especially, I don't know how long his path was with dementia, with Alzheimer's, right? But what was that?
Yeah.
What was that path like for you through the eyes of like son? Your experience with that?
Yeah. Well, it was, it's hard like anybody else that would go through it. Like he had it for my wife has a better memory of that than I do. Like for timelines, I'm not very good with that, but I'd say about 3-4 years he had it, and then it really went, downwards, and he passed away. But he had it for a few years, and we noticed something was up. Like I noticed it when my mom would tell me that, because they did, like, socially, they didn't really do much together. They were just happy being together and being at home and, going for walks and stuff. They didn't do much. But the one thing they did do was they would drive to the mall. They would split a muffin.
Whoa.
They wouldn't get a muffin each. They would split a muffin, have a coffee each. And they might run into a couple of friends who were in the mall as well. And then they would go home. They would walk around the mall a little bit and go home. That was their weekly outing. That's all they like to do. So my dad drove to one place every week, and it was to the mall. It was like a 20-minute drive, and he would drive to the mall. Well, my mom started telling me that my dad would stop at a light or at a stop sign or whatever, and he would look at her and he would say, "Where are we going? Where are we going, by the way?" And she would be like, "We're going to Cloverdale. We're going to Cloverdale Mall." "Oh, yeah. Then he would go and he would drive a little more, and he would say, "Do I turn here? Where do I go?" And she'd be like, "What? You got to go straight.
Yeah.
And then you turn left at the..." And so when she told me that, I went, huh? And that's where a light bulb went off, and we got him to go to the doctor with my mom, and my wife went with them, because the doctor, they would go for appointments, and I would ask my mom, "What did the doctor say?" Thinking about what she say to, what did she say to my dad, right? And my mom would say, "Oh, it's fine." And she would give me the Coles notes of it. And she wasn't sugarcoating it on purpose. She just doesn't do well with absorbing information, especially from a doctor. So my wife would say, she said, "How did the doctor's appointment go?" I said, "Well, my mom says that." And my wife would go, "What? Based on what we're seeing, how could that be?" She's like, "That's it.
Okay.
I'm going to their doctor's appointments. I don't care when they are. I'm getting off work. I'm going to their doctor's appointments. This is bullshit. I don't know what's happening, but either the doctor sucks or your mom is terrible at gathering information." And so if it wasn't for my wife, we wouldn't have gotten a diagnosis that quick. It wasn't for my wife, I mean, the whole thing would have been a complete shit show. And it can be, but the whole thing with that disease is, as a caregiving team, you have to stay ahead of the game. You have to be proactive instead of reactive, because if you're reactive, you're going to be like a turtle on your back, and it's just going to be worse than it is. So we were always one step ahead, because my wife was always like, no, this is what we got to do. And we got to do this. And we got to book that. And we got to go there. And we got to. So she, and I was, I would do the grunt work, but she was the brains, right? And she would take my mom to do stuff. She would, "Hey, we got to check out a home." And my mom would be like, "A home? What are you kidding? Like, no. This could go bad quickly. So we got to be ready." So it was always staying one step ahead. And had we not done that, I don't think my mom would be around anymore. I think my dad's illness would have just killed my mom. I honestly think she just would have been so overwhelmed. So we had to take on a lot for her, right?
Yeah.
Because it takes a team. There's a lot of people, Christina, that don't realize that. They think that they have to do right by their spouse or their loved one and take complete care of them. And okay, you could be the primary caregiver and you could take care of them to a point, but you need a team. You need people. And as the illness gets worse, the team gets bigger.
Yeah.
You have to do that. If you don't do that, Something bad's going to happen to the caregiver. You got to take care of the caregiver too.
Were there any moments of like light, or where everyone kind of could laugh, or where even your father could laugh, or was it just hard, you know?
My dad didn't realize he had an illness. So he couldn't look at it and go, "Oh, did I forget that?" No, he didn't know. So once, as a loved one, you accept the fact that they've changed, they are changing, and they're only going to get worse.
Yeah.
And you realize that at a certain point, you're just going to have to live in their world, because you can't correct them. You can't. It's just going to fill them with anxiety and confusion. There's just no point. There's one funny story that I tell, and I feel sad telling it, and it does have something to do with Frank Sinatra. My dad and I were just sitting watching a movie, and this was, say, in the final few months before we relocated him to a full-time care facility, so you could see where he was with the illness. But we were sitting there, and this was at a point where he couldn't be alone anymore. And so I would tell my mom, "Hey, I'm coming over. I'm going to watch a movie with Dad. Go out, like go do something, right? Have a break, right? But don't stay home, because you're going to take over, and I'm not there to be hosted. I'm there to give you a break." So she would leave, and I would watch a movie with my dad or something. We watched all these old movies together. It's a thing we did. And we were just sitting there, and my dad just looked at me and he goes, "What time is Frank coming?" I'm thinking, Frank? I have an Uncle Frank. He doesn't come over that often. I'm not expecting him. And I said, "Sorry, Dad, Frank who?" And he goes, "Sinatra. Frank Sinatra. What time is he coming over?" And I said, without blinking, I just was like, maybe a little later, Dad. Maybe a little later. He goes, "Oh, okay. I haven't seen him in a long time." I said, I know.
Wow.
I know.
Oh, that's good.
I'm sure he'll be here soon. All right. And he just kept watching TV. Never came up again. I don't know where that came from.
But you reassured him, which is such a beautiful moment, really.
Yeah. He used to be obsessed with the car in the garage and making sure the garage was locked, because the garage was like, it didn't have its own entrance. They had the garage door on the outside, and he would lock it with a key. And every night since I was a kid, he was a caretaker. So part of his job as a caretaker, he was the nighttime caretaker at a school. So part of his job was to go and check all the locks, all the doors, make sure everything is locked before he goes home at 11 o'clock at night. So he kind of carried that over at home, where he would check the doors and he would always make sure that the garage door was locked. So well after we had gotten rid of his car and he wasn't driving anymore, he would say to me, "Is the garage locked? Is the car okay?" Because I'd come over. So I'd walk by the garage, right? And he'd be like, "Is it okay?" So I'd always say to him, "Yep, car's okay. You checked it? Yep, car's fine. Door's locked. We're good to go." Okay. I would answer him the way I would when I was 18, I'd answer him the same way. I remember one time he asked me that when my mom was in the room, and my mom, it was just a gut reaction. She screwed up, right? We all have. And in this moment, she screwed up. Like, he said, "The car's okay." She goes, "What do you mean the car's okay? We sold that like months ago." And he went, "What? You sold my car?
Oh.
Why did you get rid of? Because you don't drive anymore." "What do you mean? I have to go to work tomorrow."
Mm-hmm.
And he'd been retired for like 15 years, right? "I have to go to work tomorrow. I need my car. My driver's license? Where's my wallet?" And he spiraled for like an hour. An hour. It was the worst hour of my life, because I couldn't talk him off that ledge. So, "Oh, no, Mom. No, sorry. No, Mom thought you were talking about something else. The car's fine. I need to go check it." And he was like, if he goes and checks the garage, he's going to see the car wasn't in there. Anyway, it's a really long story, but that's where he was, right? And it's like, you got to stay in their world to minimize their anxiety and their confusion, because you're not going to correct them and then we're good to go. It's never going to happen. So get over it. This is who they are now. Can I tell you a quick thing? I just talked to somebody. His name is Martin J. Schreiber.
Yeah.
He wrote a book called My Two Elaines, and it's about his 18-year time as a caregiver, taking care of his wife who had dementia. 18 years.
Oh, that's a long, long time.
Martin used to be the governor of Wisconsin. I mean, random. Anyway, so I was talking to him, and he told me such a lovely story. He said one time towards the end of his wife Elaine's life, they were sitting there together. They weren't really talking. They were just sitting there together, and she started crying. And he looked at her and he said, Elaine, are you okay? Why are you crying? And she just looked at him and she said, I think I'm starting to love you more than my husband.
Whoa.
I mean, come on. And he says, so Jeff, their memory will fade. They might not know who you are, but they still love you. That was the worst time where we had to relocate my dad. But you have to tell yourself you're doing what's best for your loved one. You're getting them the best care that just can't happen here anymore. So there's this guilt that goes along with, oh, I can't handle this anymore. I can't do it anymore. Yeah, it's because you can't provide them with the care that they need. So it's better for both of you that the person is relocated to a full-time care facility.
Absolutely.
But that's the toughest thing. And I had to be the one. This is tough. I remember we had to plan it so carefully. We had my dad going to, I don't know what you call it now. I can't remember the lingo. But basically like a day program. Yeah, like a day program, right?
Yeah.
He hated going. Like it was so hit and miss whether my mom could get him out of the house that day. Like, because he didn't want to go. Like he liked being home. And it was always really tough to get him to go, to get into a van, to get into a cab, to go somewhere. It was so tough, right? It was so stressful. But that day we had planned for him to go to a day program. And that was the day we were going to pack up his stuff, including his favorite chair. That's an important detail. And bring it to the full-time care facility, the room that he was going to occupy. And you want to bring familiar things so that when you bring them into that room for the first time, they're not necessarily recognizing the facility or the room. They're looking at all of the familiar things that they have from home hanging on the walls. And, they might be so far along that they just assume they've lived there the whole time anyway, because that's where their stuff is. It sounds kind of cruel to say, you're kind of tricking them, right? But that's how we had to do it with my dad. So while I had organized all of that and I got other family members to move and all that stuff, and I helped with the move, they would take the stuff, but I had to pick up my dad from the day program and bring him to the full-time care facility and not home. I had to drive him.
Oh, yes.
And I remember the walk to the car. And I remember the drive. We listened to Frank Sinatra the whole time. I remember all that. I can remember which songs. And more so when I hear them. I couldn't rhyme them off now, but when I heard it, I go, I remember that in the car. It's funny how music does that, right, Christina?
Yeah.
And I remember taking them, and I remember while we were on our way there, my dad saying to me, is Mom home? She's waiting for us? Mom's waiting for you at home. And meanwhile, she was waiting at the full-time care facility.
Yeah.
But I was like, yeah, Mom's at home. Yeah. She going to make dinner? Yeah. She's going to make dinner. Yeah. She's home. Yeah. Good. Because I got to get a good night's rest. I got to go to work tomorrow. Yeah. You will, Dad. You will.
Yeah.
And I had to drive him there. And I had to, pull up to the care facility. And I told my mom, wait for us out the door. So you'll be the first person he sees. And so we did that. And I don't think he had any moment of, what are we doing? What is this? What are we doing here? He just saw my mom. If he saw my mom, he was fine, right?
Yeah.
He saw my mom and we got him in there and he walked into the room and he sat on the chair and put the TV on like it was nothing. And, but then eventually we had to leave, right? And so we stayed there for, I don't know, an hour or two, wherever it was. And I had to take my mom and take her home. And we said, my dad thought he was home. So Mom said something like, I'm going to go get some groceries. I'll be back. Okay. Have fun. See you later. And we left him. He was fine. But then I had to take her and she was a wreck. And I had to take her home and I had to bring her home into this house that my dad wasn't there anymore for the first time. My sister stayed with her, which was great. But it was like, it's almost as bad as him the day he died. It's almost as bad. This is hard, right?
That's heartbreaking.
It's hard to do all those things. And to take all that on and to be the strong one. This is what we need to do. Not emote,
Yeah.
You keep your stick on the ice so that everybody else could freak out, right? And so you do that, and then you go home, and it's like, well, that was a day,
What
right?
the hell did I just do? How did I do that? Like,
Yeah, and it took so much planning, and there was so much stress, and then you feel like, okay, we just got to get to that. But then it's a whole other world of, well, now I got to make sure my dad's getting the right care. Now I got to make sure my mom is okay without him. It's like you've gotten rid of that stress, you've gotten over that hurdle, but now it's this wave of new stresses and new anxieties, right? But when you talk to people, which is great that maybe people are listening to this, when you talk to people and you hear other people's stories, you're not blindsided. So at least you could prepare yourself for these things that are happening. And nobody told me anything about this. Nobody told me about what that day is going to be like, right?
at least now you could talk about it with your kids when, when the time comes. But before that, I do think planning and having these, you don't have to talk about this all the time, but like Dale and I we have our living wills, like, and at some point, if one of us were to get sick, we would have that conversation early so that when the real shit hits the fan, like, because you're dealing with something else completely, right? And how's your mom doing now?
Oh, she's fine. I mean, she's had all things considered. I mean, she's the strongest person I know, the quietest person, the most unassuming, but the strongest, easily, because she's lost parents, she's lost siblings, she's suffered through loss. I mean, a husband, your life partner, of 50 plus years, that's a whole other story, right? Yeah. So I'm sure that hurt the most, but she's fine. Thanks for asking. She's good. I take her to the cemetery, and it's the thing we do together.
Yeah.
It's not the funnest event, but we spend time together in the car. It's a bit of a drive. We enjoy it. And the drive, that is. She's home. She's gone on with her life, but she talks to him every day in her own way. She's got it the worst, right? Because she still lives in the same house. All these reminders. Like when I go over there, I'm bummed out because I see where he used to sit at the dinner table. I see where he used to sit and watch TV, his bedroom, where he'd be in his bedroom, and pictures of him all over the place, right? Like I've got my own little tribute to him.
Shrine. Yeah.
There, like, I don't know if you could see it, but there's like pictures of Frank Sinatra and
yes,
a picture of him and me over here, and I got his lunchbox. That's what he used to take to work every day.
No way, that's great.
So I keep it there. I got a picture of him, a soccer picture.
He's a good-looking guy.
So thank you. That's where I get it from.
I said he's a good-looking guy.
So when I go to work, he was a hardworking man, and when I go to work, he's working with me. He's right here.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. It sucks. We all fucking die, and it's everyone's. It sucks. But I know you said your mom's strong, but you obviously you've got just as much strength as her. And
I try. I'm just trying.
Hey, I don't know what your pop did, but I feel like both your parents did a great job.
Thank you.
Seemed to be a pretty stand-up citizen. I mean, I haven't heard any criminal activity yet, but
no, I mean,
you're welcome to share that.
Pretty well hidden. No, I keep that pretty well hidden. But, I got a lot of skeletons in the closet, but I'll take that to the grave.
You did mention at one point that you were really knowledgeable at how to get fired. And I was like, why would you be good at that? Like, I've never, even if I hated a job, I wouldn't want to be fired. I'd rather just quit. But
I'm not saying you want to be fired.
What would be the perk to being fired, and how does one get fired?
Okay. No. It's not how to get fired. It's how to be ready when you're fired.
How to get ready. Okay.
How to be ready. Okay. I'm in radio. People get fired. Like they tell you in school, at some point you're going to get fired. Okay. If you get fired a lot, it's because you suck. But if you're going, even if you're great, you're going to get fired at least once.
What school did you go to? In the School of Radio?
Humber College had a radio program. So,
and they said that's like the first thing
somebody said to me, they said, I mean, you can have a 40-year career. You're going to be fired at least once. It's going to happen. Yeah. And I've been in radio 27, 28 years now, and I've been fired, I've been let go once, and it wasn't because of my performance. It wasn't because of me, and I was told that when it happened. But I'll tell you my story.
Okay.
I was working for a company, and I had been there for a very long time, and I felt I wasn't getting advancement, nor were they interested in advancing me. And I felt like because I'd been there so long, I had been making X amount of money, which may be too much for the time slot I was in.
Okay.
And I was working for a big company. And every once in a while, they get rid of a bunch of people because that's what these companies do, right?
Yeah.
You know the companies I'm talking about. So I kind of had a feeling that layoffs were coming, and I could be part of it. It doesn't mean it's justified on their end or mine, but nevertheless, it's the reality of it. It's the reality of the industry, which is no good. Frankly, I think it's terrible, but it's the reality of the industry, and it could happen. So I was like, I got to be ready. I've never been through this before. I got to be ready, and I wanted to be ready emotionally. I wanted to be ready in every way. So I asked a couple of friends of mine that had been fired by the company that I used to work with. I called them up and I said, tell me what that day was like. What happened? What did they say to you? What if it were to happen to me, what would you say to do? And one thing somebody told me was, because I was a producer and they were paying for my phone, they said, keep your phone. Don't hand over your phone because you're handing over all of your contacts. At the very least, between now and if that ever happens, back up your phone. Get all those numbers because you're going to lose all those numbers that you earned through your relationships with these people. But they're going to take it as their property. So back up your phone. All right, I'll back up my phone.
Okay.
And, they said, don't sign anything. They're going to hand you papers. Don't sign anything. You have a period of time in which to sign the agreement. Don't sign it. Walk away from it. Walk away there having unsigned the agreement and take it home with you. And then I had a next door neighbor. This was all over a few weeks. Then I had a next door neighbor, and he was in the restaurant industry, and his job, companies would hire him on a contract basis when they were bleeding. So they needed him to come in and trim the fat.
Okay.
So he would come in, go over their books, go over everything, go over all the positions, and come up with the list of people that should be let go. And then he would be the one that would fire them. They would come into the room, he would be there, and he would be the one that would fire them for them.
Okay.
So that was his job. So I went over to his house, and I said, Steve, I want you to call me into your office right now and sit me down and fire me. I want to know how it goes. He says, you're going to be in and out of here in 2 minutes. Let's do it now.
Okay.
He called me in. He told me exactly what they were going to say, and then he told me what to say back. He said they're going to keep it short. They're going to follow a script. They're going to tell you directly what it is, and this is what you're going to say. And it's all right. Well, what do I say? And he would say, well, I don't agree with this. It's a big mistake on your part, but thanks for letting me know. Because if you say, all right, yeah, I understand, then that's you going, I get it. I was expecting this. So act surprised and say, you're making a big mistake. I don't get it, but okay. So
taking my phone.
Yeah. And then they said, and then the person that fires you is going to leave the room. And the person that's with human resources, who's going to be sitting there, is going to go over the documents with you. It's going to ask you to sign. You're not going to sign it. You're going to take it home and you're going to talk to an employment lawyer. And you're going to make sure you get everything you need to get. So, sure enough, the day came.
No, I love that you had a support group for being fired before you got fired.
Build a team.
Most people wait until after the crisis. No, you are like me. You are over-prepared. You've thought of everything. This is very smart.
I should say, like, leading up to that day, and I'll tell you about that day in a moment. But about a year prior, I was so frustrated. I was so frustrated because I wasn't getting advancement and I wasn't happy. And I talked to my wife and she said, Jeff, you were waiting for this company and for this radio station to professionally make you happy. They're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. So you have to find other things that make you happy, professionally speaking. So I said, all right. So then I came up with a cartoon idea. I was writing for a cartoon character. I was looking to get that up off the ground. I was doing a bit of stand-up. I had like 5 things going. And then I was doing those things so much that my radio job was kind of like a thing that I was doing that was my primary source of income. I was minimizing that job, and I was being fed in so many ways creatively by other places and other things that I was doing. And along the way, over the course of that year, there would be days where I'd say to my wife, that's it. I'm quitting. I've had it. Why am I wasting my time going? And she says, no. They're a big company. If you think they're going to fire you, wait till they get rid of you so they pay you.
That's right.
Don't quit, because then you walk away with nothing. And then you're doing them a favor. Make them be uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I'll hang in there. She was right. So I did all the legwork that I told you about. Then a day came where my boss, who had been a friend of mine, like we were co-workers, and he became the boss of the radio station. So I don't have an axe to grind with him. Though I think he made a mistake. I don't think he should have fired me. But anyway, he texted me and he says, can I see you in my office tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., whatever it was. And I said, and I got the text and I was like, oh, and my wife was home. Rebecca was homesick that day.
You got excited.
I was excited because I was like, yes, finally. And I'm going to get a payout and I don't have to go there anymore. And Rebecca was homesick that day and she was napping. I went upstairs before I even wrote back in the text, and I woke her up and I go, look, I got the text. Look.
It's like Christmas.
And she was like tired and she was looking at me and she had a sore throat and she was like, oh, you're going to get fired. I'm like, yes, I'm going to get fired. Finally. I've been waiting months for this.
Yeah.
So I texted him back and I said, oh, I could come in today, because I know that if he says tomorrow at 10 a.m., he has coordinated with human resources. It's going to be in his office. This has been in the works. And he goes, no, tomorrow at 10 a.m. would be fine. He says, just come to my office. And then I wrote him back and I said, well, do you want to meet at Tim's or something? We could go and talk there, No. He's like, no, we need to be in my office. Okay. So then the next day came. I was ready to go. I backed up my phone. I did everything I needed to do. As I was going in, my boss texted me and said, actually, don't meet in my office. Can we meet at this boardroom? I said, no, we can meet in the common area if you want. Like, I was screwing with him.
Oh, no.
Because I knew what he was doing, right? And he goes, no, the boardroom C would be fine. I'm like, okay. So then I met him in the boardroom. There he was, HR person sitting right there. He says, come in, close the door. I sat down, and he looked at me and he said, Jeff, you've been a great employee. Keep in mind, a year prior, I had an evaluation, and he said, if I were hiring anybody, I would say, look at Jeff. He is the model employee. Mm-hmm. Fast forward to a year later, and he says, Jeff, we have to let you go. This is by no means a reflection of your work. We thank you for the years that you spent here, but this is the move that we have to make at this time. So-and-so is with human resources. They're going to walk you through the agreement should you wish to sign it. Do you have any questions? Do you have anything you want to say? I said, yep. I said, I'm shocked. I'm the best employee you could possibly have here. This is a big mistake on your part, but good luck with you. And I looked at the HR person. I said, now, what do you want? He turned around and left. And I was only being that way in front of him. As soon as he left, the door closed, and she says, so here is the agreement. And I said, oh, thank you very much. I really appreciate your taking the time. This can't be easy for you. She's like, well, yeah, I know this is a kind of a hard part of the job. I said, oh, you have a lousy job. This must be terrible.
Yeah.
So then we went through the agreement. I said, okay, great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And she goes, I need to get your security card back, and I need to walk you out of the building. I said, here you go. Here's a security card. And we walked out of the building. And the elevator doors opened. I held them open for her. She walked in.
Wait, did you sign? Did you sign the documents?
No.
Okay.
And then thanks for asking. And then I got into the elevator with her. And the elevator doors opened. I held them open for her. She walked out, and then we walked out. I shook hands, and she says, I have to tell you, nobody has ever taken this news this well. You are like the nicest person I have ever met at this company.
Oh my God, because you were prepared, and you're a nice guy, but you were so prepared.
And I knew what was coming. And I said, I appreciate that. I said, thank you. I left with the package. I tweeted something in the car. Oh, and also during this time, I had met with program directors of other radio stations to talk to them about possibilities. If anything were to ever come up, I wanted to introduce myself. One guy who was running a Toronto radio station I used to work with. And I wouldn't say we were great friends, but we were fond of each other. We knew each other. I tweeted out in the cab on the way home that I'd been let go. Thank you to them. Thank you to everybody. Nice little tweet. And then by the time I got home, I had a text. By the time I got home in Toronto, I had a text from that program director saying, Jeff, call me. I got some spots open for you to start doing some shifts.
Dude.
I called him that day. I said, I appreciate it. I said, but I'm going to take a couple of weeks and just relax. But in the Toronto market, as a host, if I may brag, I got fired. And by the time I got home, I was offered at least some shifts. I was on Toronto radio within weeks after having been let go. That is unheard of. But it's because I put the work in. It's not because I'm brilliant. It's because I put the work in.
Yes.
So if you put the work in,
yeah,
and you fill your bucket with stuff that makes you happy and you are prepared, then you can get fired with ease. You can be ready. So
Mic
everybody
drop.
be ready. Telling you.
Boom. So are you ready? Are you what are you ready for Sirius XM to make that to call you?
I'm ready to be let go at any time.
And well, okay,
everything.
My question is then, before we wrap, is what's next for you? I mean, even if you were to stay at Sirius XM, like, what is your dream? What is the next thing?
I am going to, I guess, continue doing my show at Sirius XM because I really enjoy it. But I have in my hand a notebook, and I'm about 20 or so pages in, filled with different ideas of things I want to do.
Whoa.
Yeah, it could be this year. It could be 5 years from now. But it's things I want to work on that, should I ever be let go, I have 20 other things to work on. So if I were to ever be let go, I'm being given the gift of time to work on all the things I've got here ready to go. And I'm working on them as we speak. So
yeah,
I've always got a bunch of stuff ready to go.
I would say, like, I mean, this has worked for me time and time again since I can remember starting making lists and writing things down. If you've got a dream, there's something you want to do more of, be it writing or knitting or whatever. And you, if you're like me and you need like kind of a structure to get yourself to, to be disciplined, write it down.
Yeah.
Post it somewhere, like write these things out, revisit it, revamp it, rewrite it, just keep that list and keep adding to it.
And this notebook is a fresh notebook.
Yeah.
I haven't added to my diary or whatever. This is a fresh notebook. The only time I ever use it is when I'm contributing to these ideas. And they each have a dedicated couple of pages to these ideas. And every time I meet somebody or talk to somebody or I have a fresh idea, I add to it. So I can revisit these notes and go, where did I leave off with that thing? Oh yeah, I talked to so-and-so in March about blah, blah, blah. I gotta connect with that person again. So I've always got stuff on the go because let's face it, I don't think you can work for any one company or have any one job and be fully fulfilled. I think if you do, it's rare.
It is. Yeah.
You got to be ready for other stuff, right?
Well, I think too, it's a mark for you of a good producer and creative force. Like you obviously have this constant stream. Like you're very open to these ideas and inspiration, and then you're ready. You're ready, and it's a good feeling. I've always felt like uncomfortable with all those creative energy, but then not having like it down on paper because I feel like I fear I'm going to lose it. I'm going to forget it, or I'm not going to actually be able to manifest that. And I don't know where those ideas necessarily come from, but it's really fun to be able to kind of channel into something and see it sort of happen, you know?
And look, I mean, you got, you know, this podcast being one of them, you got a number of things going, but you're fortunate in that you're extremely talented in singing and in songwriting and in performing. And so you can funnel a lot of that creative energy that is into this one thing that you do. And then you put it out into the world and you hope there's a reception for it. Right. But I love that because you are in control of that outlet. And I feel like with what I do, it's becoming more and more possible to be what I am professionally and to have an audience. Wasn't always like that. You needed to work for someone, you needed to work at a company or whatever to have access to their platforms so you can be heard. It's a little less like that in the podcasting world now. Mm-hmm. So I certainly have that to fall back on. But frankly, like I'm confident with who I am personally and professionally and with what I do, that if I'm told I can't do that there anymore, it's fine. I'll do it somewhere else. Yeah. I know my value. I know what I can do. You know, and I don't think that's ego talking. I think that's self-awareness. So I'd be fine. If I've done my last show there, I don't expect that to be the case. And I love working there. But if I've done my last show there, it's fine. I'll be somewhere else. I'll be doing something else. I'll be happy doing whatever I'm doing.
Jeff, I didn't want to start the conversation like this, but SiriusXM actually wanted me to deliver the news to you that today was your last day on air, and now you're free. I don't have the HR with me, but you know you'll get that in the mail tomorrow, the paperwork to sign.
Blindsided and unprepared for this.
I'm here to release you. Now you're welcome.
Wow.
You're fired.
Well, I can say that my time there has been great, and I appreciate your candor. And I'm not signing anything.
I don't want to say goodbye to you. Oh, I don't want to say goodbye to you.
Welcome to the Heartbeat Hotline, 1-902-669-4769. I'm the host of A Chat with Heart podcast, Christina Martin, and I'm so excited you called. Leave me your question, a suggestion for the podcast, or a comment about this episode. Please be aware your message may be used on the podcast and social media. Tell me your name, where you're calling from, and it's also fine if you want to remain anonymous. Thanks for listening. Have a great fucking day.
Christina Martin, this is Jim Barber from Napanee, Ontario, Canada. Question for you. I don't know if you can tell, but my voice is a little hoarse. I've been suffering from a cold for about a week. Throat, chest congestion, cough. Mostly now, though, sneezing, runny nose. As a seasoned road warrior that you are, whose voice is integral to her career, and I would imagine your overall health, you and your partner in crime and your partner in music as well. What do you do to, A, try to prevent getting sick this time of year? And what do you do to try and mitigate the effects? I think this would be of interest to other, perhaps less seasoned, less experienced musicians who are trying to navigate the flu and cold season, but also just in general, what you think would be a good way to mitigate cold and flu symptoms. Wonderful to talk to you. Looking forward to hearing the new music, and hopefully you'll be out this way again to perform sometime in 2023. Take care. Bye-bye.
Jim, hello. Thank you for calling the Heartbeat Hotline. That's a great question. Okay, so I'll answer one part of that. What's a good way to prevent getting sick? I take 4,000 units of vitamin D, and I can't remember how many units of zinc every day. And I try to get vitamin C every day, either just from my fruits or freshly squeezed grapefruit or orange juice. So that's just a regular part of my diet. I eat a plant-based diet. That may have nothing to do with it, or maybe it just helps keep me healthy overall. I avoid sick people. That's like number one best way to prevent sickness is to be upfront with your friends and family if there's going to be an event. And especially after, the pandemic, since the pandemic started, it's more common to just ask people if anybody's sick. And then you can make your decision on whether you're going to go to a party or be in a room with, a group of people based on the answers you get back. So really, this is all just about avoiding sick people. And I exercise regularly. I think that helps my body stay strong and healthy. When I'm on tour, I wash my hands a lot. I also avoid situations where I'm going to be straining my voice if I'm getting ready for a show or I'm going to go on tour. So any public kind of hangouts where I'm going to have to shout, I tend to just avoid. And the other thing I would suggest for musicians that maybe going on a tour or getting ready for a big show that you're investing a lot of money in is to start rehearsing, like rehearse on a regular basis, and make it like 4 or 5 days a week. You are rehearsing for 2 to 3 hours. You're singing, you're playing your instruments, but your singing voice, you need to work that like you would exercise your body, because otherwise at least I do. I mean, if I don't sing and then I'm to start rehearsal for an event that week, I'm really struggling, and it affects not just my voice is strained and but my confidence. So I do take stretches of time off from singing, not too long, but like a couple weeks sometimes or a month from playing a gig. But I usually, if I know I have a show, I'm usually at least starting rehearsals 3 to 4 weeks before that show or that tour. And let me tell you, by the end of a long tour, like you really, if you take care of yourself, you have not only come out with a stronger voice and kind of a more seasoned voice, I suppose. But that you can lose that if you don't just keep up with practicing. Now, what about if I am sick? How do I navigate singing with a really I'm hurting? Because that's happened to me a couple of times where I've been on tour and I've had to navigate a cold. And there are a few times I had a nasty, infection. And I was in the middle of a Europe tour one time. I think I was sick for over 8 weeks, and it would get better and then it would get worse. And I had to go to the doctor and antibiotics and blah, blah, blah. And that was really hard. And that was before the pandemic. But here are the things that I have done in the past when I am sick to try to get through it is vocal warm-ups, but not too much, like 5 minutes throughout the day, drinking not hot, not cold, but warm, like room temperature, warm drinks with lemon or ginger tea. Avoid sugars, as much rest and sleep as possible. So like whenever you could fit a nap in, I would do that. And then, the steams with like eucalyptus oil or peppermint inhaling the, like fill the sink with hot water, throw a towel over your head, drop some eucalyptus or peppermint oil, just a few drops in the sink, and just inhale and exhale deep breaths. Or you could do that in the shower as well. All that stuff. Like I would try everything. But I mean, the best thing to do, which isn't always possible when you're on the road touring, is sleeping. And sometimes, you have to cancel shows. I would do that now if I had to. That's a lot. I also, when I'm sick, I make a wellness soup, which is just like vegetable broth and all my favorite vegetables, like a salt heavy for sure. And I'm like constantly drinking the broth. Oh, I hope that helps. That's a lot. Good luck. And Jim, thanks for your question. And I hope you're feeling better soon. Thanks for listening to A Chat with Heart podcast, produced and written by me, Christina Martin, and co-produced and engineered by Dale Murray. Check out Dale's website, dalemurray.ca. The podcast theme song, Talk About It, and I Don't Want to Say Goodbye to You were written by me and recorded by Dale Murray. You can find my music on Bandcamp and all the places you stream music. Visit my Patreon page to become a monthly or yearly supporter of this podcast and my music endeavors. If you're new to Patreon, it's a membership platform that helps creators get paid. Sign up at patreon.com/Christina Martin. I would love it if you had time to share, rate, leave a review, and subscribe to A Chat with Heart on all the places you listen to podcasts. Wishing you, my little heartbeats, a great day.